Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Radio Free Wall Street. I'm so glad you're here. 5 o'clock New York time. I really look forward to doing the show. I love it. And we're talking about something that's not really making the round of news, and that is that we have awakened the sleeping Chinese dragon. China is a country that should never be underestimated. They have made amazing progress. They did it their way, no doubt about it. And they've built a culture. They have built a machine. And this machine is able to compete in the world markets, as we know. They've got 1 billion people there, okay? That's a lot of people. And they make it work. Now, it's a oppressive regime. There's no doubt about it. It has its problems, but let me say this. It is making progress. To underestimate China and the Chinese people is very foolish. Those people have survived a lot of things, okay? And they just keep coming and coming and coming. They are highly disciplined people. More so than we are in America, if the truth be known. They are highly educated. They really respect intellect more than we do. They don't tend to be so tribal. And they really, really understand what their priorities are. They really understand what their goals are. And let me tell you something else. When you're dealing with China, you're dealing with consistent leadership. When Donald Trump was there showing his ass at the G7 in Canada, Marcon said, presidents aren't forever, but prime ministers of China are, and they can take a very, very long view. Now, we are now in the next round of the tit-for-tat trade wars. It is what has knocked the shit out of gold, silver, copper, platinum. Oil's got OPEC a lot of credit for that fiasco. Stock market has been pretty ugly. Chinese market has been getting its ass killed. Now, let me tell you why. Trade wars are a nasty business, and you don't like them. You hate to do them. You hate to see them happen. I'll put it this way: if I had a choice between free trade and bad trade, of course they're going to speak up for free trade. But now, if I have a choice between bad trade and no trade, give me bad trade. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a businessman. I'll figure it out. I'll do this, and a little that, and this and that, custom form here. There's always, always a way. I want to be in the door. I want to be in the game. I want a seat at the table. See, once you're in the lobby sucking hind tit, you're not a player. So the thing about it is you may not have a good position in China. You may not have a good trade, but you got a foot in the door. And let me tell you why. China knows that it manipulates its currency. So, by the way, you don't hear a lot about it, but the Japanese still do and have for 100 years. It is a way to compete. A lot of the things that we're accusing China of now, one time we accused Japan of. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you want China building warships and weapons and having everybody in the military, or do you want them all there getting a piece of the pie? You want them to all have their TV, their iPhones? Do you want them part of the future? You want them traveling around the world as tourists? Of course you do. Don't isolate a culture, okay? Let me tell you about people. It's politicians that make us fight. You get people and you find out they want to communicate. You get people and you find they want to do deals, okay? It is the nature. It is something in the human spirit. Now, when you get these asshole politicians involved, then it's about the agenda on both sides, okay? We have started a trading war, and let me tell you what China's going to discover. China is going to discover that now it's grown up. It's no longer sucking hind tit. It can compete with America. It can say no to America. It can turn America's allies against it and break into the back. So you had that iron block. You had the Americas and you had Europe. Okay, and this was an ironclad block that no one could penetrate. America really, really took care of the Caribbean. It really took care and paid attention to Central America, South America, Mexico. It really did. Canada, too. And it was kind of like they never aired their dirty laundry. Okay, the NAFTA agreement was a breakthrough in its time. Okay, it's 30 years old. I remember. In fact, I knew a man who was a negotiator. I met him in Chicago. And he was a government negotiator. His job was to negotiate these kind of agreements as a professional. And he was saying that, he said, and this is when no one really knew what NAFTA was. And he told me, he said, it's going to change the face of business on the continent. He said, this is a very important deal. And we gave a lot up. Okay, you're supposed to. Hello, there's an old Russian saying. It says the free cheese is in the center of the trap. Give them some free cheese. Get them used to doing business with you. You know, I've used that in forging business relationships, and I've had trade deals that sucked. I mean, they were really bad deals. They really were, okay? But it got me a seat at the table. And then I found that if you follow your instincts, you can negotiate this thing, okay? When everybody's pissed off, you're not negotiating anything. When they're at war with each other, it's even uglier. Negotiate. You know, I know it's the art of a deal. But see, closing a bullshit real estate deal, you know, where you, oh, do you like the kitchen? You know, and that kind of crap is different than trade. See, a real estate deal is you get them in, slam, bam, thank you, man, throw them out, okay? A trade deal, you're doing business constantly with your customer. They become your client. You have a relationship. You wiggle, waggle, I need a little this, and a little that, price increase here, change the spec there. There's a lot you can do. Trade has not been bad for America. Contrary to trade has not lost American jobs. Far more jobs have been created by our trade agreements than been lost. Jobs have been lost by technology? Well, yeah. Jobs have been lost because we got our heads up our ass? Well, yeah. What was the last television made in America? Was what, Motorola, and they closed down? We don't make a flat screen display screen in America. So it is understanding the evolving nature of business, the evolving nature of manufacturing, the evolving supply chains. You know, you take a camera. Have you ever taken apart one of the modern cameras? Oh my God, with the lenses and the filters and the circuit. I mean, and made out of plastic. It's just incredible how the cheapest components possible can be clobbered together into devices to do sophisticated things at when you really look at what the technology, incredibly cheap prices. And then when you start looking at where the parts are sourced, it's like a United Nations building in there. Okay, it's from all over the world. Everybody's got a piece of the pie. What is so bad about that? Why do we not want to do that? You know, I much rather have China as a trading partner than a trading enemy. I much rather kind of influence China to say, you know, you can build a big navy and modernize it, but maybe you can do more business with India if you don't try to take their land from them in the Philippines. And where's your market potential? You know, trade is a wonderful thing. I'll give you an analogy. You got a guy that's got an orange tree, and he guards that orange tree, and it produces a couple bushes of oranges, right? No one goes near the tree. It's his tree. Now, if he opens up the field, and he plants more trees, and he gets more people helping farm those trees, and fertilizing and watering them, then people come up with good ideas. Well, now all of a sudden, his 2 bushel yield is 50 bushels. Now, it may be 500 bushels out of the field, and 450 may be getting away, but his 2 bushels became 50. So he's making more too, but he has to spread out the pie. And trade works like that, okay? And remember, trade takes twists and turns that you don't know where they're going to go. You just don't know how things end up, okay? You don't know what direction they go in. You don't know what the future negotiation is going to be. And anybody that says they do is a liar. So this idea that we can direct trade and correct unfair deals with trade sanctions is not the way to go about this. Now, there are times when it's time to play hardball. Don't get me wrong. But a unilateral trade war is really stupid. Now, okay, so we've decided that we've got a trade war going now with China. We got Japan kind of carved in there, South Korea and some things. We got a hell of a huge trade war with Mexico. And you got one with Canada. Now, what do you think is going to happen to that steel? Do you think they're going to dump it in the ocean? Or, well, let's see. Oh, looky here. There is no sanctions on steel coming in from Brazil. I can bring in cold roll. Okay. Marketplaces are very clever animals. And trade kind of wiggles, waggles around, and kind of digs its way through and kind of burrows in. And that is what... I'm trying to be kind here. A lack of finesse does to you. It doesn't allow a true appreciation for the subtleties of trade. It does not allow for a win. If you got like the art of the deal and there's a winner and a loser, that's not smart. Okay, that's why Donald Trump has such a terrible time getting anything through. He doesn't understand that you give a little, you get a little. Sometimes you give up a lot. Sometimes you don't. It is an ongoing. Isn't you ever been married? Isn't your marriage with your wife an ongoing negotiation session that never ends, okay? With a give and take. If you're not going to have a give and take, you aren't going to have a marriage, right? Or any relationships with people. I mean, I got people, I love them, I hate them, I can't stand them. everyone has a desire, okay? And it's going ahead and finding out what direction that person wants to go in. You know, if you let me tell you something. If you approach, and I truly do, I approach human relationships not like what it's in it for me. I'm saying, well, okay, how does this relationship grow? How do I help this person? How do I make their life better? And then you know what? They make my life better. Do you understand? You understand what I'm trying to say to you? It is an approach, an attitude. Now, I'll tell you how I developed it. I've done business in shitholes all around the world. I mean, I've had to trade under huge sanctions. I've had to. I've been treated, at least say at least, very unfairly. And if you're really good at what you do, that's the price you pay, right? I mean, you know, the world's your enemy. And I really understood that and embraced it, and I didn't let it bother me. But then you learn that if they can get to know you, and if you can speak your truth, and you can prove yourself, people come around, okay? People love a winner. People hate a liar. People want to know, and like I said, there's a basic human instinct, and I think we all have it. You know, you kind of get a feel for people. Now, every once in a while, somebody fools you for a little while, but you understand that trade is the same way. You know, trade is about getting to know this person and trying to figure out, well, what do they really want? What can I give them, and what can they give me? Not in an evil, disgusting, unfair way, but in the spirit of give and take. Donald Trump could have passed Obamacare and got rid of it. He could have done it, but there was no give and take. They had a DACA negotiation on these kids. All right, there was a deal on the wall. I mean, the Democrats didn't want to call it a wall and a test and all that, but when you walk out of the negotiation, and we have our leadership that does a lot of that, it becomes a disaster. And we're seeing that right now. You know, the Chinese stock market is down on this news, has been. We've been following it. Gold has gotten a little wipeout, which was well overdue, right? Low of the year right now. Silver, platinum, palladium, okay? This is all tied together, okay? You need to negotiate. You need to get with people. You need to find out what's in a mutual. You know, if you have whoever you're trading with, there becomes that subject of mutual interest, okay? And I'm going to say something else, too. I have found that my system of respecting even the lowest guy, if I go to a restaurant and I watch someone, you know, showing their power over the poor little waiter guy and make him feel like shit, okay, it just grates my ass, okay? And it's one of these situations that even the simple guy's got a story and is worried of respect, okay, and dignity. And all of a sudden, if you show that person a little respect and dignity, then all of a sudden they want to help you. They want to be part of your life. They want to make a difference, okay? And if you let that grow into just your interpersonal relations, you know, as versus road rage, and I want to kill you because you cut me off. Really? Is it really worth that? I mean, you know, that's that little inclination inside of us, you know, the little evil voice that's there, as versus, let him in. Let him in. Well, okay, he wants to pass you. Okay, let him in. Well, what's the big deal? Then all of a sudden everybody benefits. And the trade is very similar to that, okay? And finding out what is mutually beneficial. And there's always something mutually beneficial, okay? Okay. The Canadians got a hard-on about dairy products. Okay, they have for, you know, hundreds of years. I saw a little cup of tea steaming there, and I had to grab it. Sorry. But, you know, I look for what things are in abundance. You know, if things are in abundance, they're cheap. And then I look for what's scarce. And I try to get the abundance into the scarcity, if that makes any sense, okay? Is not the human race eating better diets now? Are we not all prospering? Is not mankind, even if with unfair trade practices, has the cheap goods at Walmart store benefited the consumer in America? Do we sort through what the junk goods are and get them out and, you know, kind of grow? I mean, if it wasn't for sourcing, you wouldn't have, you know, a video camera that's $100. You know, you wouldn't have, you know, a printer and a scanner. And all these things around us are the benefit of trade being open up. Now, when we close that, okay, then it gets ugly. Now, I titled this, you know, Awakening the Sleeping Chinese Dragon. I really meant it because China may wake up and realize that, you know, it doesn't have to make any concessions. China might realize that it can play the role of the spoiler. And there is that kind of negotiation. You know, while Donald Trump, I thought it was ironic, was pissing everybody off and insulting and being downright rude. But I'm showing him how tough I am. Well, okay, you're showing what an asshole you are. I don't know about tough. What happened? The Chinese were warmly receiving the Russians. The Iranians were there. There was people from the Venezuela. I mean, it's kind of like the cartel of who does America hate? We love you, And this is an incredible time. It's an incredible time because of communications. It's an incredible time because of the awakening of mankind. We although there's world poverty, we have the least rate of world poverty ever. You've got Bill Gates. He's doing a lot with what his initiative on malaria and diseases, and I'll tell you a story. A couple of years back, I had eye surgery. My left retina fell out, and I went to a pretty famous surgeon, and he got me in right away and and understood I had to have a fast turnaround, and it was really scary. In other words, I had an eye, and the retina fell out, and I was blind in my left eye. And it shows you how precious those gifts are, right? Well, the surgeon, very quickly. By the way, it's a computerized operating room. It was really interesting. They go for that stuff in Switzerland. So it was an amazing situation, and all of a sudden the vision was restored, and I went through a follow-through. We got to be pretty friendly, really, really nice guy. And you know what he's most proud of? I mean, this is a very wealthy, very famous eye surgeon to the stars, okay? He was most proud about the free clinics he runs in Africa restoring people's sights, okay? And he said that, more than half the cases of blindness can easily be fixed. And he talked about the fact that he had to negotiate with some of these pretty nasty governments to get things in there. And he was able to, go into some pretty hot places. I'm not at liberty to discuss, but, and he was going around sanctions and people were looking the other way. And he had a big thing about that. And he dedicated 2 months a year to this. And this is kind of like trade, okay? It starts out as a stinky, nasty mess. It may start out as a really bad deal. But like I started out telling you, that sometimes bad deals, and especially in trade, is better than no deal. The Trans-Pacific Partnership and U.S. walking out without even negotiating will turn out to be one of the classic mistakes of our times. Canada? Look, Canada is not hostile to America. Same thing with Mexico. Let me listen here. I'll explain a little bit of the Mexico-Canada equation. Canada is an example of an educated, successful, prosperous society with very little poverty. Mexico is a very difficult situation because they have large amounts of very, very poor people. And they have what they call vulnerable populations. I saw the greatest progress made with deals that were bad deals. Yeah. When USAID went in and put in roads and put in electricity, well, guess what followed? American businesses, American factories, American ownership, okay? So that charity in the beginning ended up to be an inroad into the culture, into the society, okay? We were involved in, road building projects. And, it may not sound like much to you, but to have a road that's passable during the rainy season is a lifesaver, literally. We were involved in putting in electricity and with the Dutch. The Dutch were very, very generous. And basically, when we negotiated this, it became a trade app. Another story was the Spanish. I saw the Spanish, and it was on an airport building spree, right? They were donating airports. And, in fact, I met King Philippine when he was doing that, by chance, not because I was somebody important, but because I negotiated. I had a facility, and I knew when to say yes. And what happened was all of a sudden, Spanish Iberia Airlines are coming in, and that airport that was a huge money loser, bad trade deal, got turned around into opening up tourist areas. So, you got to back down and say, okay, the old lemonade and lemon story people tell you about. The situation is, why piss them off? Why have anger? You see, it's a concept of if you're dominating the trade, and like I said, when it's one time in, done, by the condo, get the hell out, thank you very much, that approach can be taken. But when it becomes an ongoing relationship over many years, that where you're striving for a mutual beneficial interest, that's a whole different kind of trade. That's a whole different kind of negotiation. You know, and in trade negotiators, and I've known a couple. In fact, I have a friend that wrote a deal about a book about negotiating, not the art of a deal, I mean a real one. And, you know, basically the whole point of it was the give and take and complexities and not necessarily looking to dominate the deal. So we have now got a trade war with Canada. Is that really going to do us any good? Canada's now are boycotting U.S. products. I'm hearing stories of people, Canadians canceling vacations. I mean, they're really offended. Is that really where we want to be? Is that how I really want to see us position with Canada? And the answer is hell no, no way. That is stupid. I want to see this done in a way that erases bad trade deals. And sometimes you have a trade deal that's a good deal. But, you know, as you're negotiating your trade deal, it's really hard to look 30 years in the future. It's really hard to look at how things are going to change, okay? So, therefore, you have renegotiations, and you have this process of give and take. And it's one of these situations that, if you, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is a very important point I wanted to make to you, as part of Awakening the Sleeping Dragon, you know what we did? We handed Europe and the rest of the world to the Chinese. America was obviously the big kahuna at the table. I mean, it was really our deal. It was not, it became political with the right wing, with a misunderstanding of the deal, by the way, but that's okay. They do that a lot. And what happened was America walked away. China walked in. The deal came out. At the last moment, unbeknown to most people, China started, America tried to get back in. And they said, you know what, when we have the next round of negotiations, make an application. So in essence, America's sitting out of the lobby. Now with the Brits leaving the European Union, okay, and we're starting trade friction on that side, who do you think is going to make the deals with the Brits? It's a wide open economy. I mean, they are a huge importer of goods. The dumbest thing Europe is doing right now is trying to punish the Brits for leaving. Well, why is that? Well, the Brits are a large importer of European goods, not the other way around, okay, large. Again, you know, that balance of trade deficit you're talking about, they run with Europe. But it's not about the trade. See, it gets back to this Trump kind of psychology and art of the deal nonsense. Let me explain. If Britain can leave the trade union and not be punished, then what's to stop Spain from leaving or Italy from leaving? Now, you know, you have people on the outside of that union that enjoy duty-free access. You know, ideally, in an ideal world, there's no duties. I've watched duties go from 100% to 80% to 20% on a lot of things that interest me, okay? I watched with my horror when we put duty on solar panels, okay, and basically devastated the industry. That was at the same time, by the way, that the tax break for solar was being removed. So the implication of trade is complicated. How does the country handle a tax on those goods? What are the goods? And what are the traditions? You see, when you get into dairy and that kind of thing, and farming, that's a real difficult subject. Why? Because it goes back to disputes of hundreds of years ago. And it gets back to the complexity of relationships that changed. I mean, what is the story of Columbus discovering America? And he did discover America, by the way. I was there in Columbus Beach. In fact, I owned it, which is where he landed on his second trip. And I can tell you that the story of the New World discovering the Old World was one of trade, right? Spice trade. And these trade relationships grew to very complex structures that are literally still in place to this day in an amazing kind of way, right? And the tariff systems have always been, and started as a taxing mechanism, and then it became a way of punishing your enemies. And isn't that what Donald Trump's basically doing? Is he not punishing his perceived enemies by this thing? Of course he is. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, how will that turn out? And we just got some economic reports last week that said, you know, holy cow, we are seeing an increase in a lot of goods as a result of the tariffs on them. They're already filtering through. I can tell you that when we ran into a tariff situation, just slap it right on the price. Thank you very much. I'm not paying that shit. You are. I'm not discounting for a tariff, and I don't know any businessman who does. It's your tariff. It's your hell. Pay it. Thank you very much. So who is really losing the trade war? Here's one that's interesting. The American public. Do you think that Chinese steel is not going to get dumped on the global market? Of course it will. China knows it's got a steel problem. They know they got overcapacity. They have huge amounts of debt run up by the steel industry. Well, what is it all about the Chinese? Well, it's a job program, okay? It was more about, a steel plant employs a lot of people. So it's basically the need for the Chinese to create jobs. See, the Chinese government's got a big problem. And that is they have a population that's earning for, like you see Peru, nobody wants to go back to the farm. Well, the Chinese exemplify that in all the communities. And people want a better life, okay? And they want a better life for their children. And they may have not gotten an education, so there's that huge migration. And that requires jobs. Now, a government that cannot provide jobs for its people is a government that's not long in power. I mean, is not what we're talking about in the Italy discussion really about jobs? Is not really what everything we're talking about America's jobs and the prosperity and longevity of it? And so anytime we're talking trades in America, we're talking jobs. But the problem is we're blaming trade for lack of jobs or for lost jobs. That's not trade's fault. Trade is a net plus to the U.S. economy, even with our balance of trade deficits. And trade wars are a net negative more so to the U.S. economy than anywhere else. Why? China is going to find a way to wiggle-waggle its steel all around the world anyway. So if it's not steel from China that's coming into America, it's steel from somewhere else, and the Chinese steel creates the market. It's kind of like the oil business. It's really it's a great big tank. No matter who puts the oil in the tank, it's still a great big tank of oil, which represents oil supply. And there are all little straws coming out. Well, that's all pipes to all the users. But the market tends to balance itself out universally. And agricultural products especially do that. I mean, the world price for agricultural products is not that different. And the same thing with oil. I mean, we have a differential, but the economy is always trying, and trading always tries to force those differentials to adjust themselves, okay, as an arbitrage play. And believe me, I well understand arbitrage. So, you're walking in a situation like there's a huge opportunity, for example, in China in the insurance business, right? And that's not going to show up in the balance of trade numbers. How do you like that shit, okay? Chinese people are woefully underinsured. There is a huge demand for medical in China that's not being filled. Okay, a huge opportunity for U.S. businesses. So there are a lot of trade opportunities that will not show on the import-export debt, or known as the balance of trade deficit, okay? And those are the kind of things that are not being counted, and we're basically being played for fools by our leaders. So it is a very sad day. China will realize that if it doesn't have a U.S. market, well, it's got a European one that's hungry for its goods. And if America wants to close its markets and vice versa, then what's going to happen is European countries will get into a place that was given and ready, set aside for America. American financial institutions really had a big in recent years into the Chinese market, and it was very much a developing market. And that is no longer the case. If it's not Boeing airplanes, it'll be Airbus. So if it's not McDonald's hamburgers, well, it'll be somebody else's. We are making a severe mistake, and China's going to realize, I think the leadership already has it, they don't have to put up with this shit anymore. There was a time when China was very much afraid of the U.S., very much afraid of the trade sanctions. That's not the case anymore. And I'll tell you what, the mistake with the Trans-Pacific Partnership was absolutely one of the dumbest moves ever. And history is going to be proven as such. I'm going to say something else to you. Climate change. Well, I don't believe in climate change. I absolutely think it's bogus stuff. I think carbon tax is just another excuse for another tax, by the way. But you certainly want to be there, influence your opinion. You understand? Like I said, when you're sitting in the lobby, then you're waiting for the press release. When you're in there at a seat at the table, you can try to get some sense talk to these negotiations. This is not the way to handle this, and this is going to end in a catastrophe. And we just kind of saw that in the markets today, and you're going to have a lot more fun days like this. Now, for me, bring it on, bring it on. Shut down the goddamn border, put up the troops. I mean, shoot them down, kill them, whatever, because that's just more money for a guy like me, okay? We trade the disruptions, it's a disruptive model. Now, I prefer to have a disruptive model for technology and for growth, but I'll play the game any way you want.